All right, let's see if this works now. Does not. Okay, probably further down. I could swear I did this last week. Oh, here it goes. One participant. Are you allowed to share your screen right now? Do you have,
Yes, I am.
perfect.
There we go. All right, are we ready to get started?
Do we have enough people?
We have enough people, right? Because you're the
I'm
you're the
Vanessa.
rep, and then we're 7 total.
Yep,
8. Great.
perfect.
So we're all set to get started, and we have a minute taker today.
Yes, that's me.
Awesome. All right, let's get this party going. So welcome everyone to the November 16th edition of the Urban Forestry Committee meeting. We're here, it is 4:37, and pursuant to the Chapter 2 Acts of 2023, this meeting will be held remotely. And something we like to do on this group is promote attendees to be panelists, so you can share your video if you like, and you can ask questions and engage. So I think, Malik, do you have that power to promote people to panelists?
Yes.
And as others, if we have others join in throughout the afternoon, we can promote them to panelists as well. So I think we'll start with introductions. So we'll have the UFC committee members go around and introduce themselves. And we'll go alphabetical by first name. So if Calla, you want to kick it off?
Hi, my name is Calla Taylor. I am a junior at Somerville High School, and I am the youth member of the Urban Forestry Committee.
Awesome, thank you. And Breck?
Yep. Hey, everybody. My name is Breck Miller. I'm the city tree warden based out of DPW.
I guess I'm probably next. I'm Chris Dwan. I'm a local activist and super enthusiastic about our urban canopy.
And Dorothy?
My name is Dorothy Supet, and I'm a member of the Urban Forestry Committee and a general member. Also excited about our canopy and keeping up the health, our trees, and improving it over time.
Great. And Doris?
Good evening. My name is Doris Jenkins. I am a resiliency engineer and certified arborist, and I am a member of the committee.
And I think I'm next. My name is Leah Grossman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the committee. I'm a landscape architect by day, urban forest enthusiast by afternoon. And recently I'm very excited to see all the community enthusiasm around a lot of the community planting that's been happening recently. I feel like it's very inspiring and hopefully showing that there's a lot of exciting things to come. And last but not least, Tori. Oh, and Malik too.
Hi. Oh, Malik, I'm going.
You can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tori Antonino. I'm the co-chair of the Urban Forestry Committee, and right now I have a carload, a truckload of plants to go to a Miyawaki forest that we're doing, that Green and Open Somerville and Green Cambridge are doing on a private residence in Cambridge. So it's a lot of fun. So I'll mostly be on a listening end today, and thanks everyone for joining.
All right, I'm Malik Drayton, urban forestry and landscape planner, deputy tree warden, and conservation agent. I'm here subbing for Dr. Vanessa Bukili.
Great, thank you. And I think we just have one resident here so far. Anne, if you want to say hi and share any resident concerns you have.
I noticed that the Milwaukee Forest is on the agenda, so I went by to see it last night, and I was a little concerned about. I was glad it was fenced in, but I wondered what had happened. So that is about the only thing.
Great. Yeah, we'll cover that today. And we have no other attendees that I can see, so I think we can jump right in unless any UFC members have resident concerns. Chris.
I have a resident concern. I'm the resident. I'm concerned. We had two saplings, two street trees, where drivers like backed through them. First on my block and then one block over. And two is a lot, especially on 2 blocks in the same year. I'm wondering if this is happening in other places or if I just have one spectacularly bad driver near me.
Could be
I
both.
actually today
It,
I noticed on Medford Street, I noticed a tree and it looked a little uprooted. I'm not sure if it was a car, but it looked damaged somehow.
That would be 427 Medford Street. I believe I got a report about like a tree hitting a car.
I guess I'm asking Breck and Malik, are you getting a lot of reports of these?
It's funny because I was just asking Adam like last week about trees hitting cars because they seem to be becoming a bit more prevalent. So I was just trying to go through that data and see
Wait,
what trends are.
cars hitting trees.
Yep. Oh, I keep saying it the other way around.
hopefully not the other way around. It does. I mean, it happens, I would say once every couple of months we get at least one probably, and it does happen. Fortunately, I guess, at least a lot of them are under guarantee. Like unfortunately, if there's no police report, if nobody from the city witnesses it happening and gets the police there, like as it's happening, we don't really have a lot of recourse, but hopefully at least for some of the smaller trees, they are under guarantee. Although Malik, I don't know, is that an exception to the guarantee rule? Do you know the answer to that? If it gets hit by a car, is that like outside of the contract?
Trees that's gotten hit by cars. So yeah, we usually just have them replaced.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's increasing faster than we're increasing the population of small trees, like I could totally see now that we have a lot of saplings, there's like a greater target surface area, right? I honestly have no idea what we would do about just drivers hitting more trees. That it's almost comic in its sadness. Please do not.
Yeah, I don't know. What I would guess that we get probably like 10 or 12 a year. Does that sound right, Malik? Like it happens periodically, but it doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
On my street, it was literally somebody learning to parallel park.
Yeah, that's pretty bad luck to have 2 on one street, but
yeah. All right, just wanted to kind of mention it as a thing that was worrying me today.
And I guess the one thing I would say is if you haven't submitted it anywhere already, like if you either send that to the, the trees inbox or put in a tree planting service request at those addresses, we'll hopefully be able to get the trees replaced.
Cool. I put in a 311.
Okay.
Yeah, Dorothy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is a committee concern, not a resident's concern. But I will probably have to leave between 5:30 and 6. So if there's anything that we need to vote on, I wondered if we could rearrange the agenda to be sure those happen.
and to make sure we maintain quorum if you do have to, when you have to step off. So I think we're at above quorum, right? So if you leave, we're good. Yeah. And then in terms of
Okay,
voting
great.
items, just scanning the agenda here, I think the only, or no, I think we have a couple documents to review that we'll probably want to vote on, right? The TPO revisions and the green roof support letter. So maybe we shift those up after we do updates from the city. And did you say between 5:30 and 6?
Yeah, I'm waiting for a call. I don't yet know
Okay.
when, but yeah, between 5:30 and 6. Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, not at all. All right, yeah, so we can rearrange those things if that sounds good. Any other resident concerns?
Hi, it's me. I have a resident concern. So my neighbor got a ticket for overgrowth on her property. And so part of it said that there was things that were vegetation that were blocking the sidewalk, which I don't think was necessarily true. And the wording was, in addition, that it's a weed ordinance, that there's overgrowth on the property. And she has a pollinator garden and a bit of a wild, look going on. So I don't know how we amend this ordinance so neighbors who don't like the look of someone's property, that's what's happening, calls in and says, oh yeah, it's overgrowth. So I kind of think it's time to get at least that ordinance amended. I understand, having vegetation on the sidewalk and impeding ADA accessibility, but not the overgrowth on your property. So I'm speaking not for my neighbor, but how does she get this ticket voided? And then the bigger question is, how do we get this ordinance changed and or off the book?
I could be wrong about this. My understanding of the way that works is the overgrowth on, I think what they call it is overgrowth from private property onto public property. So I would assume that if they issued a ticket, it was because there was something growing onto private or onto public property, excuse me. But I think, it's something she would need to take up with inspectional services, basically, and, possibly if she could explain the situation and that the overgrowth actually served a purpose, maybe it's something they would waive, but I believe that it's more an accessibility concern, but I could be wrong about that.
Can I build on that?
Please.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this. It looks, if this is the most recent one, it was passed in 2011 by something called the Board of Aldermen before we had a city council. And it says you are correct that there's a blocking passage portion, but there's also no person in control of any property. Let's see, shall maintain such property free of vegetation that is infested with rodents, vermin, dangerous insects, or other animals, conceal pools of stagnant water conducive to the breeding of mosquitoes, or create a fire hazard. And then there's also a thing about wood piles where you're not supposed to store wood in a manner that would provide rodents or other animals with harboring places. And you also can't let decayed, dead, or hazardous trees or tree limbs just linger. So yeah, I think that sounds to me like something that, and the other thing is that ISD does not patrol the land looking for these, that somebody undoubtedly complained So there's like a neighborhood issue going on for sure there. But yeah, I would totally go tell ISD that it's none of these categories. It's a pollinator garden. There's not like stagnant water or Ratheim there, and just tell them no and then make a fuss about it.
Thank you, Chris. Leah, Renee CC'd you on her, she wrote an email to
You're cutting up quite a bit. I don't think I can hear you, Tori. You're chopping up quite a bit. I'm trying to look for an email that I was CC'd on by Renee recently, not seeing anything. And now Tori is muted, but it still seems like there's sound coming in. I'm not sure on, let's see. Yeah, not seeing a recent email from Renee, but maybe we can circle back on this. Maybe once Tori's back in better range. But I can also, I think this is the link. Let's see, I think I can share a link to this link for sharing. I can copy this into the chat and then that can go into the meeting notes and be available. Does that sound like a good approach? All right, let me get back to our agenda. We're still wrapping up resident concerns. I see we have one new attendee in the meeting. If you'd like to introduce yourself and say hi, we can promote you to be a panelist. And if you have any resident concerns, you're welcome to share those now. Seeing Jack is in the meeting. Yes, I think Malik can promote you to panelist, so you can unmute and say hi. Perhaps. I see you have your hand up. I'm not able to promote you to a panelist, but I think Malik is, if Malik's there. All right, maybe that will also resolve in a minute. If you are able to unmute or put in the chat, we can shift to that. But we can go ahead and move on to updates from the city. Do we want to do these updates quickly, or do you want to shift these to after our voting items? What do we think? Probably just do a quick city updates on tree removals.
Yeah, mine's a quickie.
Great.
Again, sorry not to send the list before the trees were actually cut down, but hopefully you all saw my email from earlier today. I think it was 11 trees that we took down, all of which were in pretty rough shape. As you can see, the removal lists are getting considerably shorter. So, you know, there's always going to be a handful trickling in here and there, but I think we've finally gotten to the point where we're past the sort of mass removals of dead, terrible trees.
I would just like to say good job, and that I have heard no public consternation about tree removals in a while, which is a big change from a couple years ago. The neighborhood mailing lists used to just light up when you did a round of removals because we weren't communicating as well as we do now. So good job all around.
Great, thanks.
And then do we have any other tree removals? Private tree removals, permits and exemptions? Can bring up the spreadsheet. Looks like Mike might be navigating some tech. I will scroll down to our exemptions. It doesn't look like there's anything TPO related. Does that sound right?
You are on 2021.
That would be a good, I think this is the ongoing TPO, yeah.
That's ongoing, yeah.
It's ongoing. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a
And then-
few more there that I recently need to update.
Okay.
But let me see. Check my email really quickly.
And then it looks like there's some new permit applications, so we can get to that.
Yep. And I got another one today for Mount Vernon. 28 Mount Vernon. Just put in one. Let's see. Okay.
We can also come back to this if you need a minute.
No, it's right here.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, and then all right, so it's 40 Church, no, 37 Gorham Street. And 48 Bank Street. And those are fairly recent. That was 11/3 and 11/6. Let's see what else. 37 Gorham, 48 Banks. 29 Josephine. And 294 Beacon might be the last one you see on there. No, this is after the Urban Forestry Committee meeting, but 294 Beacon had a Tree of Heaven removed.
And are these on the TPO list or the permit applications list?
These are all exemptions.
Okay.
That's happened after the last meeting. So this one was October 24th. And let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then in terms of permit applications, the only new ones that I have here for you guys. I don't think I ever closed this. Okay. Only new ones I have here for you guys are 28 Mount Vernon. And let's see. Not Mount Vernon, Mount Pleasant Street. And no, not 17. That's pretty much it. 108 Highland Avenue, 74 Partridge, and 54 Troll Street. That should be it from last month. So I'll update that sheet as things get processed and permitted.
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions, concerns about tree removal? All right, do we have a fall tree planting? Oh yeah,
I have
Dorothy,
a
go ahead.
question. How do people find out about that they need to get a permit to have a tree removed?
My impression is that, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think since we've implemented this, most tree removal companies know about it. And so they should be able to alert the resident. So I think that's the primary way, if I recall correctly.
Okay,
And then-
because the assumption
you
is
can
that they're
expand.
going through a contractor rather than doing it themselves. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And then pretty much if anyone's doing any building or construction or driveway, usually engineering would flag me for any of the street occupancy permits that, you know, relate to tree removal. So there's a lot getting flagged from multiple different directions.
And have we had issue before of just individuals removing their own tree? I feel like our
Seems-
density would make that a impressive feat.
It's
But I'm sure
interesting
it's happened.
because a tree that will require that would actually trigger the need for a permit would be quite sizable enough
Mhm.
to be usually contracted out. I don't think anyone would be able to just start removing 8 inches and out diameter trees. Because at that point, how tall is it? What tools are you using?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, no, I haven't really.
Great.
Yeah, and I would add that when the ordinance passed, this was a really big concern, and it's one of the reasons we have all of these like pauses and delays in the ordinance. And the city did a bit of a publicity blast. They tried really hard. They put it in the sort of Somerville update emails and put it in various newsletters. And we haven't done that for a while. I will say I have seen one instance where I thought it was a terrible idea, but it was clearly like a person rented some chainsaws and some ropes and some ladders and had a couple of laborers, and they were just like going after this tree. And at that point, I did investigate, and it turns out that's just a terrible idea, but not illegal. So I've seen it once recently. It might not be a bad idea to suggest to the city that we throw that back into an email blast somewhere, just like as a reminder, 5-year anniversary of the tree preservation ordinance. We do have this thing because ownership does turn over slowly. I do feel like word has gotten around, but you're right. I haven't heard anybody explicitly like letting people know that it exists in a while.
Yeah, and people forget,
Yeah.
right? So you might have heard it 5 years ago, but then, now you weren't thinking about your trees, and now you are. And I think people do all kinds of things in their backyards.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's the fact that it is a 5-year anniversary is a nice moment to remind folks about it. So maybe in the new year, we can think about supporting a blurb like that.
Yeah, I understand. Isn't it only 4 years old? September 2019?
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened. Was it
Yeah.
2019?
Yeah, it was June. I think it was past June, June 2019, and actually came into action in September 2019. So we're encroaching on the 5th year
Mm-hmm.
because we're also encroaching on my 5th year.
So that's good. So then we have about 6 months to put this together, and then we'll be
There we
right on
go.
time. Awesome. Do you have any fall tree planting updates?
Oh, they're a little behind, but they started a lot of prep work this week. So if you see a company with a lot of machines, saw cutting, that's what's going on. A lot of no parking signs by trees, and it should be really hitting the pavement next week.
Awesome.
Hopefully
Good to
the weather
hear.
doesn't get too bad.
And then it looks like Tori is not here at the moment. no one else is pollinator action note provider. So I think we can skip over that for today, if that sounds all right. And then Tori might also be our Milwaukee Forest update, unless Malik or others have a Milwaukee Forest update for us.
I do not.
I know I intended to go and I didn't have a chance to. I think we also have some attendees in the attendee line, if we can promote them to
Promote them.
panelists. That'd
I'm
be
on
great.
it.
And Crystal might have some updates for us with a raised hand. Hello.
Hello. That was I'm not even sure if I left the meeting and returned or what happened. Anyway, yeah, I went to the Milwaukee Forest, and it looks great. I actually stopped in after the plantings were over by a week or so to figure out if all of the extra leaf mulch was gone. It is. There was some good cleanup there. And it's a really nice area, and I encourage other people to stop by. I think that's going to be a great asset to the city.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And it looks like Tori might be rolling right in on time. Hi, Tori.
Hi, is this any better?
It's pretty rough. Oh, that's a little better. Maybe
Okay.
with the camera off.
Uh,
Yeah, now is okay.
Yeah, you
We'll let
sure?
you know.
Yeah, maybe that worked. Okay. All right. Well, I'm here. I'm stationary now. So, all right.
Do you have a
Nice to see everybody
Do you have a
again.
brief Milwaukee Forest or Somerville Pollinator Action Plan update?
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, you know what? Right now we're just coordinating for our next meeting, and I don't believe there has been any announcement yet, unless I missed something. Contracts are being circulated at the moment. We will unofficially be kicking off the work next Monday. Oh, and that was on the 9th. All RFP applicants have been notified by procurement, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to look online to see if basically the SPAP committee is deciding on when our preferred timeframes are for continuing our meetings. And once that happens, it's all systems go, and I'll be reaching out to everyone and asking you to attend and reporting.
Awesome. Sounds
Cool.
good.
Awesome.
And then I know Anne had a question about the Milwaukee Forest. I don't know if Anne, if you want to expand upon your concern or enthusiasm or question. And still muted, I think.
Excuse me. I had the impression that some things had been dug up.
Tori, do you have any insight on that?
Last time I was there was about a week ago. So is that a possibility? For sure. Last time I went, there was a few things that looked kind of like they were leaning over, so I just straightened them and packed them back down. But I'll take a look at it next time when I'm back over in Somerville, which should be, well, tomorrow. I'll take a look at it, and I mean, I don't know if it could be squirrels or just some squirrely people trying to get a free tree. Albeit if they plant any of those, it's going to be huge. Those are big trees. I mean, they're babies now, but they'll be big. Thank you, Anne, for having us on this.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like we'll keep an eye out, and if anyone hears anything, you can circulate it around. All right. If it sounds all right, is it okay if we jump to our 2 document review items? With no objection, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. So I think we can start with the tree preservation ordinance updates, which Vanessa sent around before she left. And I think this is Chris.
Yeah, so would you mind zooming in on that a little bit to make it sort of fit the width of the screen? Awesome, thank you. So as we mentioned, we're at 4.5 years or so of the tree preservation ordinance, and I wanted to take a look and check in on how it was working, things that we had learned, potential updates that we might make. Us passing this, just to say, this is a letter from the committee. We have no legislative power. What we would be doing here is giving our opinion to the city council, who could then, a councilor could decide to make a motion to amend the tree preservation ordinance, and then the council would probably invite our chairs to a meeting of some committee or other, probably legislative matters, to explain our thinking. But then the city council gets to decide. Like, we're not deciding the law here. We are, as this committee, talking about the framework that it created this committee and created the tree removal permit process, and saying what's working, what doesn't, and what do we think we should change. One thing of note is I think we did a pretty good job when we wrote this in the first place, and it's working pretty okay. There were concerns that the world was going to end and the sky was going to fall. There were concerns that we were going to get sued and lose, and the whole law was going to get thrown in the dumpster. That hasn't happened. We've sort of slowed removal of large trees on private property and created a committee and had a bunch of Arbor Day celebrations and done a bunch of tabling and all of these other things. So these are not major changes. Mostly these are refinements. There are 4 of them that I've suggested here, and what I said last time remains true. I've written this such that were we to just vote on it with the update to the date at the top, we could ship it, because previously I've tried to edit live in front of the committee, and it's always a little weird to try to literally edit by committee. So the first one is that there's 4 changes here. The first is the least controversial. I went from it's not necessarily true. The first is the least controversial, where we have had challenges with recruiting and retaining youth members. Because things change rapidly for youth members and the wheels of government grind slowly. So the proposal in summary is that youth members, the term would be aligned with the school year, sort of September to August, and we would no longer require them to go before the city council confirmation of appointments committee to be approved. Like, the mayor could just put a name forward and they would start September 1-ish. That would be renewable if the person is still less than 18 and still wants to serve, and September 1 comes around, the mayor could say, go on and continue. And if they were 19 when they came around, the mayor could potentially put them forward as a full member, and then they would go before confirmation of appointments. So this basically just streamlines it down, so we could maybe, like I don't know, Kala, how long were you pending once you were nominated? I'm guessing it was like 4 months.
Yeah, it was a big chunk of time.
Yeah. And we have confirmed we're totally able to do this. The city council can decide to either require the confirmation of appointments or not for any particular role within the city. So that's at their discretion, and I think this is pretty uncontroversial. Any conversation around that?
I just had a question about why it's tied to age instead of enrollment in the high school, because there's plenty of people who's, because of birthdays or because of life happenstances, they're, seniors and they're past, 18 or 19. It's a minor point, but you'd hate to have somebody on the committee that's committed and then all of a sudden they can't do it, even though they're in high school, because, and they're also not ready to bump to a 3-year term.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think for me, I just assumed the word youth, that it's not a student member.
Oh, okay.
But that I'm agnostic on that. Like, as I say that, I realize I have no attachment whatsoever to that concept. And if it would be more effective to have this be a student membership, then that would be being enrolled in, we would probably want to specify some Somerville educational institution that's not Tufts. Like I don't know how I would say exactly what we're trying to get, like a high schooler, basically.
Well, I'm thinking like grades 9 through 12 or whatever, 10 through 12 or something. Or maybe that runs into its own problems, but I don't know. I know of people that because of their birth dates, they couldn't do this in their senior year if they wanted to.
One thing I would just wonder is that I think the previous youth member, I don't think they went to Somerville High School. I think they went to like a private school or something. So just keeping that in mind, that there could be youth community members who don't necessarily go to Somerville High School that could still be interested in, and should be eligible for the bill.
So could it be just enrolled in high school, or is that enrolled, and a Somerville resident or something? I don't know.
What if we just bump the age to 18?
Yeah, I know we had a discussion about this and like debating if that means that they're an adult technically by the law. I'll have to go back in my notes. But I think we also said that we had the idea that you just had to be that age when you began your term. And then, if you like turn 19 in April, you wouldn't get kicked off until the end of your, the year of since we changed it to a school year term. And then you could, I guess you would have to be eligible. Like if you were 18 and still had another year of high school, there might be a unique. I wonder if we can say like
I was
unique
thinking
clause.
more tied to high school enrollment rather than just age. So that's fine. I think because of the thing in there about being tied to the school year and stuff, I just assumed it was tied to
no, that makes sense.
The schools.
And Tori's note about in the comments about homeschooling is also completely valid. That I think the point is youth, not necessarily student at Somerville High School.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know Murphy was Essex Tech, I believe, which I think is still high school.
Yeah, that's high school.
But just not Somerville High School.
And what it says in the language is between the ages of 14 and 17 at the time of their appointment.
Okay.
I make a motion to change it to 18 years old because, not all students fall within the sort of targeted age for each grade that we set up. People learn at different paces. So that's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right, and what we're doing right now doesn't really require motion. We could just change it in the text that we're looking at. So if you scroll down till you see green.
Yep. Let me.
And sorry, it's not a track changes thing. This is just I made green text and red text.
Sweet. Okay. I think I still need to tell my computer that it's okay. I can edit this document. It's not something scary. Yeah.
And
see if I can open it again.
And if it's challenging at all, I can share screen and I can edit because I own it.
One sec. I think I just need to say that I've downloaded this, but I can enable editing. There we go. Okay. All right, so yep, scrolling down. Oh, I think, yeah, so in your notes, 14 and 18.
Yes.
Great. All right, should we go to item 2?
Sure. I as long as everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, I
That
mean, I
makes
guess
sense.
if we present it to the city and they're like, no, 18 is legally an adult, they cannot be a youth member, something, we can bring it back. But I say, why not propose it? It makes a lot of sense.
One of the super cool things about this process is the way the document leaves an individual's control and becomes the city's. And watching the various committees like edit it's fascinating, and you wind up with something that is not at all yours. And you're like, okay, the city just decided that that's the law. It's honestly kind of beautiful. All right. Second thing. So this is slightly more contentious. Right now, there is, if somebody just goes ahead and cuts down a tree with no permit on private property, it was a significant tree, it was not dead, it was not hazardous, it was not an invasive species, it was more than 8 inches in diameter. They have a 30-day grace period to retroactively get a permit, with no fines or penalties assessed. They do have to pay the fee or commit to replanting. But this is the no harm, no foul provision of, you didn't know, it was still in process. Okay, you got 30 days to get a permit. This has frustrated a number of people when I've explained it to them. It does make the ordinance less less stern, since you can just go get a permit after you cut down the tree. And you would still, like I say, you would still have to pay pay into the tree fund or commit to replant, but it's a very forgiving sort of way of approaching things. Vanessa and I disagreed at first about this, and I wanted to say that this was because people just didn't know, and we didn't want to sneak up on them and have sort of a punitive fine if somebody didn't know. And Vanessa, in our conversation, convinced me that there's value to having this sort of slack in the system, both for city staff to not have to be a source of delay if somebody is on a schedule, and also that this is true for a lot of other permits. This is kind of the way the city works on a number of things. So we came to this middle ground where and there should be more words here, once per owner per some number of years, per 3 years, where the point of the tree preservation ordinance, if you go it's not in the document, but all the way up in the purpose section, is to slow the removal of the urban canopy and allow us to maintain urban canopy and protect it. You see this all over the place in wanting to block mass removals and really make it quite expensive to clear cut a lot. And so the idea here was, sure, there's a 30-day grace period on a single tree that somebody needs to maintain. And if somebody goes through and clear cuts, then I would love penalties to begin applying immediately. They're a developer, they buy a lot, they cut down a whole bunch of significant trees. I have substantially less sympathy, particularly if it has happened before. Right. So I think that 3 years is a not unreasonable thing, particularly when we talk about the good justification for allowing property owners to maintain their own. Actually, this is also it's the same thing as below. There's a really good justification for allowing property owners to manage the trees on their property, which is that your life changes and your needs change and trees are expensive to maintain. And so over time, sure, they could make a decision to have substantially less trees. The goal here is to have that be a planned, graceful thing where other trees in the region have a chance to grow and take up the slack, rather than a sudden, one bad day when a bunch of trees go. So the point of both of these is to retain some of the softness of the ordinance, but have it block mass removals. And if somebody comes in and with no permit at all cuts down a bunch of trees, they start having penalties on that very day. I am very curious, Breck and Malik, how that lands for you.
Malik, you're muted. Still muted. No go. Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Gotta push all the magic buttons.
Are you able to unmute him from your end?
I do not have that power.
I was still on mute. Sorry. Everyone can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it is a long process to actually find someone. And it's an everyday recurring thing that needs to be put in a system, printed out, mailed certified. Every single day it recurs. And then you just need the documentation there, all the back and forth, all the warnings to make sure that after you've gone through the entire process, that this ticket doesn't get abated and you just didn't waste a bunch of staff time and someone did not just wiggle out of their monetary obligations. But when a tree is removed on private property before species or size is ascertained, it's highly unlikely that they got the stump grinder in there. So I just do my measurement at the base and you assume it's healthy because they can't prove otherwise. And you don't assume that the species is invasive. So, and they're not communicating with you, they are costing themselves more. So there's that. And the 30 days, I would say, is definitely needed to convey information, go back and forth, strengthen the case against them in the first place, and then just make sure everything has a steady process instead of a rushed one.
So I guess my pitch was that there are people who don't know and there are people who don't care. And people who don't know, I have some sympathy for. But if somebody like has just goes ahead and cuts down trees, and if they get caught, then they apply for a permit, I have a lot less sympathy for them on the second and subsequent times. Yeah, I hear you saying that actually getting a fine issued takes a while. And so like on the second offense, how should we have a grace period? Or should the fine just start like as soon as you can get the paperwork done? Like we're not committing you to have fines out the next day. We're saying that we can.
Well, ideally, people just do what they're supposed to do. And if there's a tree removed and we require mitigation, then as long as I get that mitigation, that's perfectly fine because that would just go into the tree fund. Any fines that accrue thereafter and after the 30 days, that doesn't go into the tree fund. That just pretty much is a different pot of money that goes into. So in terms of trees and replacing trees, the most important part is actually communicating with the homeowner, making sure that they know they don't have to remove it, which I've had success with this week. Talked to a property owner, they wanted to remove a huge silver maple. And I just pretty much told them that the cost is going to be X to remove a tree generally of this size. And if you just maintained it, you could reduce all the problems you're talking about. And they just decided to withdraw their permit application and everything's fine. No need for mitigation because it would have costed them a lot of money. And no need for them to spend a lot of money needlessly on a knee-jerk reaction. So
That's fantastic. That's the things that's the system working exactly as designed. I guess for this particular edit, we're dealing with people who have already cut down the tree. There's just a stump.
mhm.
And right now, there's no fines for 30 days while they get a retroactive permit. And if they completely ignore you for a full month, then we can fine them.
Yeah.
And my pitch is that if they have already that's already happened once, and then it happens again, it's the same property owner within 3 years, that we would be able to start fining them immediately.
All right.
Like, I think this will be rare, but like,
Mhm.
I'm just imagining a particularly belligerent developer who goes ahead and like it just doesn't care about our process. I would like the opportunity to be a bit more punitive than we are.
You said that.
Hi there. Yes,
Okay,
how
so
are
I
you?
agree with that one.
And can you mute yourself?
Oh, sorry.
Or Anne? I don't know if you were able to do that, Malik. Sorry.
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry, continue.
All right. So in the 30-day grace period being removed for repeat offenders, that makes a lot of sense. However, with the third bullet point, whereas you reduce the owner occupant exemption, only one tree per property, that's probably going to sour people's relationship with trees. So I would be more careful about what our thoughts are here on the third bullet point.
Okay, so does anybody else have thoughts on the 30-day grace period?
I think for repeat offenders, that makes perfect sense. I know we're dealing with one this week that, that's going to be the case, and I would love to be able to issue the fine immediately. So like that makes perfect sense to me. Malik is the one who deals with the permitting stuff, so logistics wise, I would defer to Malik on like how that impacts the process, but in principle, it makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Yeah, and then the third bullet is the most controversial, where in order to get this thing passed, practically speaking, we had to exempt owner occupants of 3 or fewer units from a requirement either to replant or to pay into the tree fund. Like if you live in a 3 or fewer unit that you own, you can just cut down all the trees on that lot if you feel like it. And people have complained a lot about this to me. People have said it makes the ordinance so weak that it's laughable. We all know about the stories where some property owner just like for no reason that anybody can understand clear cuts their lot, right? Cuts down the great big trees. So this one, I wanted to go for no, just remove that exemption. Just to make it apply to everybody. And Vanessa convinced me that people do need to be able to change the configuration of their lot over time. My goal here was to slow removal and make it a more deliberate pace. So I said one significant tree in any 3-year period. And it's still absolutely not a ban. It just says that if you want to remove more than one significant tree within 3 years, the the ones beyond the first one, you have to either pay into the tree fund or commit to replant, even if you live there, even if you're an owner occupant. And again, this is one where I would love to see the committee make the committee's recommendation. And then if the council decides that that's unworkable and that we will be run out of town by angry residents if we try to do this, then they can edit it out. But I think like that political decision by people who actually have to face voters is above our pay grade here. I would just say the committee should come to consensus on how we think that owner occupants ought to be treated. Should they be able to clear cut their lot with no payment into the tree fund, or should we slow it a bit? And my pitch is slow it a bit.
I guess I would say I definitely had or have reservations about this one. Doing away with the exemption altogether, I definitely object to. And I guess my feeling is that if we are kind of sticking it to developers who are removing trees, you know, for profit, I am all for that. I do think we need to be sensitive of sort of overstepping when it comes to, you know, private property, and, you know, these are expensive properties that people paid for and own, and is it really our place to weigh in on what people do with them? You know, debatable, but I guess I feel a lot better about the wording now versus doing away with the exemption altogether. I guess the other thing that I would put out there is I know in Cambridge they have a sort of a partial exemption where owner occupants pay, I think, like 10% of the fee or something like that. So it's not dependent on how many trees they're removing, but they're contributing to the tree funds, but, you know, contributing probably substantially less than a developer would be. And that might be an alternative to consider.
Dorothy, I see your hand.
Yeah, so I'm generally in favor of it, but I don't really have a sense of what the implications would be of it, like, you know, the second or third order implications. And one question I would have is like, well, how would people, kind of like my earlier question, how would we know how, in order to make this fair, everybody would have to know about it and would have to be kept apprised of it on a regular basis as residents are changing hands, or how properties are changing hands, or whatever, right? And so my curiosity is if it might be a great idea, but if implementing it is just undoable for whatever, yeah, I'm curious to know if it just is undoable, or, you know, would cause a lot of problems, because how would anybody know this on a regular basis? Even if you tell them once, it's not enough, right? You need to keep people appraised of it. And I don't really have a good sense of, yeah. So those are kind of my questions about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how people have found out beyond that initial mailing, but one of the things we were really deliberate about in drafting this was that removal of significant trees on private property does require touching base with the city. And then you get an exemption from the rest of the process once you confirm that you're an owner occupant. So people who are doing work on private property have already been interacting with Malik for the past 4 years. And he just confirms, well, yeah, you're the person who's on the ownership registry. Cool, you're exempt from the rest. And that's that one side of the spreadsheet. There, I think, have been many fewer sort of surprises on that front. After the like, people were confused the first year, but it's tapered off to the point, like Malik, I don't think that we've had a lot of surprises in the past couple of years at all. I think with a little bit of a publicity push, we could make even more sure of that. So, and honestly, for me, but as I said in the beginning, I'm an activist. So I'm kind of on team, let's make the rules that we wish we had, and let's get the word out. And if people don't know the rules, then we can inform them. But I would rather not make less than what we really want for the rules, because we think we can't inform the public about them. I would rather say, well, let's figure out how to do it this new way.
Okay, well, my question, I guess, is about the public, but it's also about enforcement or applying the law and not having things on the books that, you know, for whatever practical reason or impractical reason, don't actually, nothing ever happens with them. And that undermines the overall, you know, purpose of having them.
Oh, 100%. One of the things that we have an advantage on here, unlike other ISD permitting processes, is that the neighbors tend to call when a large tree comes down. Like I said, the neighborhood lists just absolutely light up. And again, if it's an owner occupant taking down a tree and they didn't get a permit and they didn't let their neighbors know, and it's just the one, they still retroactively go get an exemption. You know, but if they clear cut the whole lot, then they're back in the permit process. And I guess that's the situation where they took down a whole bunch of them and they say, well, I just don't feel like I should have to give any community benefit back. I can do what I want with my private property. And I think, as one activist, that I would like to say, well, no, that's not how Somerville treats its urban canopy. Doris,
I think, yeah, I think so. I had two questions. One I think is probably just in the background of the ordinance that I'm not aware of, but is the replacement policy for planting new trees, is it you have to plant the same like summed caliper of the tree you removed? Okay. And then I think I liked the idea that Breck posed of paying a portion of it for owner occupied units as opposed to the same fee that developers paid, because I do think that the spirit of it is to discourage owners from moving trees. And I agree that establishing the precedent that that's not how Somerville treats their tree canopy, I feel like that's a strong sentiment that I definitely agree with. I do think that there's also a point to what Breck said of people pay a lot of money for their homes here. And it's difficult to tell people what to do without, I think, creating ill will towards the urban canopy. Like, I think, you know, encouraging maybe a partial solution of, okay, do you want to remove 5 trees? What if you remove 3, but you plant 2 and they're smaller and the sum comes out to this smaller number? I feel like the collaborative spirit might be a little bit more of the way to go, at least in an initial pass, to get people to not hate the committee, right? And as the new member, I acknowledge that I don't have all the background, but that's my 2 cents.
No, that's a really valid and important point, is we don't want to be adversarial with the city, right? And we will always have sort of nasty people who say, like, well, I guess I'll just cut down every tree when it hits 7.5 inches before it becomes an expensive problem. You know, and those people are just being mean and they're just trying to get a rise out of you. But they do exist right here in the city. People have told me that. So yeah, what if I do like the idea, can we consider maybe doing both, where that opportunity for compromise is already in there, that you're supposed to replant matched caliper inches, which is usually impossible on the lot. And so whatever you commit to replant comes off of what you would pay into the tree fund. And owner occupants are currently completely exempt from having to do any of that. So actually, as I think on it, I'm really liking Breck's idea of making the fine more, or the fee more notional, you know, like 10% of what we charge a developer. So there's a cost, but it's a small monetary cost, but it brings them into that same conversation of, if you replant, then this notional fee gets smaller. and the fee right now I think is $600 a caliper inch, so it's pretty substantial, which is indexed off of what it costs us to put in a street tree. Yeah, what if, I'm not convinced that I want to edit that live, but I feel like that's a really good balance. How do people feel about removing the blanket exemption and just saying that the monetary cost is 10% if you're an owner occupant? So like remove all this confusion about you get one freebie and just say it's a lot cheaper if you are an owner occupant.
I would feel pretty good about that, I think.
Oh, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm back and forth. I like the what you were going for, Chris, in terms of slowing down the removal of trees. That's like, okay, yes, you get one pass. And would that mean in that language that every 3 years you could cut down a tree and not be have to pay into the fund?
Yeah, that was where we started. And that was me and Tessa having a conversation about slowing it. And as I think on it, Breck's concept here, what it does is it does remove the exemption, which was my original goal, was to bring everybody into the process, that there's no just like complete exemption for being an owner occupant, but it acknowledges the financial reality of owning property and maintaining large trees in the city, and says, okay, we've got people, we have financial constraints, so it's substantially cheaper. And I suspect over the next, in the next 5 years, we can revisit and see, well, was that right? Did it matter? That is another thing about watching law evolve, is we get to do experiments, and if it turns out that we made a terrible mistake and the city council passed our terrible mistake into law, we can change it again. And I see Crystal's
okay, so I have 2 questions. Oh,
go ahead, sorry.
Oh, just yeah, 2 questions. One, I mean, could we get up to 20%? Like what I would be interested in what the numbers Cambridge actually does use. And the second question is, Chris, could you remind us of what a significant tree is?
A significant tree is 8 inches or more DBH. So breast height, 8 inches across.
And is the invasive removal, how do the invasives work with that?
Invasives are always exempt. You can take out invasives to your heart's content. No?
Right. But isn't it
up until
if
24
it's an invasive
inches for Norway maples?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
God, that should be off the books, man. I'll let Crystal talk, but I'd be up for, again, making Norway maples exemptions just across the board. They're that horrific, but
yeah, so here's my suggestion, is that we put something in as a proposal, be it 10 or 20%, and then at the legislative matters committee meeting, when the committee asks, how'd you come up with this number, just go ahead and say, we made a suggestion, and that's one where if there's a reason to have a different number, we are open to it. Like, and we could also go and look and see what Cambridge does. I don't know what their fraction is. Okay. My suggestion on this, to avoid editing by committee, especially I'm kind of keeping an eye on the time and we have other things, I will take the action item to go and change the proposed language to make it do. And how do people feel about removing the, I would honestly, another reason I would love to remove the exemption entirely is if you scroll down to the to the language itself, there is perhaps the ugliest paragraph I've ever written, which is saying a lot, which is this whole like hack job to figure out what happens if somebody cuts down a tree and then sells the house to a developer. Like it's just a wretched thing where you could imagine somebody taking the exemption, chopping down a tree, selling, and then the developer comes in and blah, blah, blah. If there's no exemption, we can just ditch that entire paragraph and say there's a consistent process. It's whoever is doing the thing and owns it at the time. And honestly, everything gets a lot simpler. Okay, I will edit and make just the simple thing where owner occupants pay a substantial amount less. And we'll see how that flies.
And I also just want to recollect that with all of these changes, there's still a like hardship clause somewhere, right? So if a owner still has financial hardship, there's a path out of that. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. Malik
Okay.
can grant clemency. Malik can grant an exemption for financial hardship in particular.
Yep.
And if the person wants to come and talk to us, they can, and that's happened exactly once in 4.5 years. I honestly did not enjoy it. I saw the wisdom of not making this a quasi-judicial body in that meeting. But if they choose to, and then we don't actually get to decide, we just like can advise Malik, and then he has to pick, you know. But yeah, there is always space for a hardship deferment. And then
yeah, so that feels like a good, we're charging most people, but some people have an out. And I think it is valuable given that having trees save you a lot of money. And so if you remove the tree, you're punished by not having the benefits of the tree, and you should recognize that by paying more to plant more trees. So I think it makes sense. And I think having a percentage, I also agree with.
All right. And then this last bit, thank you everybody for being so engaged here. This last bit, we wanted to do this idea that when you do work around trees, we want you to take care of the trees and protect them. And Vanessa and I thought that was going to be a big bunch of editing, but Cambridge has it, where anytime you do any kind of permit by ISD or DPW or water or anybody, one of the things that goes with that is that you're required to take reasonable precautions to ensure that significant trees are protected. And I think we should just throw this in, and like they clearly thought about this language fairly deeply, that if the tree has to be removed within 2 years of your failure to protect it, we fine them as though you removed the tree illegally. And this is another one where I would have like the Legislative Matters Committee can look at that and have opinions on words like should and will and shall. But I think it would be great to, the thing I love about this is that it connects to every single other piece of work and increases protections for trees. All right. I will go ahead and I'll figure out how to do the 10% thing, and I'll bring this back for the December meeting, if that works for everybody.
That sounds great. Thanks for bringing this forward. And then did you want me to save the one edit I made?
I will make that edit on my copy, which I have open here.
Great.
And we moved it from 17 to 18.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then I think we also did
we added
per 3-year period for bullet point number 2.
Yes, I got that one as well.
Great. All right. Thanks very much.
Could we make the percentage fluid, or like land on 15, or Brack, do you know for certain what the percentage in Cambridge is?
I think it's 10 or 20, but I'm not sure which. I mean, we could find out easily, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
I'll look it up and I'll make it whatever Cambridge did. And then when they ask, we can say it's what Cambridge did. And they'll say, well, why did they do that? We'll say, I don't know. All right.
But 20 sounds good.
Yeah.
If it's 20.
I'm mean. 100 sounds good. But I'm told, I understand that people are in different situations and it's expensive to maintain property. So I also don't want to be mean. All right, I'm good with this. Do we want to move to the green roof letter, which maybe we can get out today?
Let's do it.
All right, so this is actually going to happen. They're going to discuss it in land use tonight, but that's fine because it's not going to do anything more than pass out of committee and go back to the city council. So we still have time to tell the city council our thoughts. The city council is considering a change to zoning that right now right now you're not required to do very much on our roofs. And they're considering a change to zoning that would require either photoelectric solar power or green roof on any portion of the roof that is not mechanical or human access. And at Tori and other folks' suggestion, we say, why not both? It's actually good engineering practice. People are doing this everywhere. You can put a green roof under a photovoltaic array, and we could get the benefit of both. We don't need to choose between electrical power generation and ecosystem benefits and water sequestration. So what I drafted up here is just a statement that we understand you're considering a change to the zoning code. We, as the tree committee, don't feel qualified to speak to the question of like the details of the zoning code. I certainly don't. But we do want to support expanding green roof coverage in the city. And I say we're 80% impermeable, which is give or take what the urban forestry management plan says. And basically I'm trying to say there is no way in the world to change that number in any meaningful way without changing something big. And our rooftops are a big thing. We could actually, over time, have a significant impact on the impermeable fraction of the city if our roofs started going green with development. And I think we should do it. And I just close, we should take every opportunity to find ways to get multiple benefit. So this does nothing other than let the council know that we think that green roofs are awesome and dual use is better than single use. And I would love it if we could just if there are changes, I'm happy to consider them and then sign off on it and let the council know that we considered it and we think green roofs are cool. Oh, and I see Tori notes that there's no requirement for solar. You just have to be solar ready, which is about the electrical system.
Yeah, so just there's no requirement for solar.
Okay.
And even in the stretch code, it's solar ready, which is just capacity. So
flat roof.
yeah, there's a requirement for the albedo, right? Which is the reflectiveness, but that's it. So go green roofs. Thank you, Chris, for writing this, but and just want to make sure we know just to reflect the zoning code as it is. So removing, again, there's no requirement for solar. Oh, or green roofs, but thank you.
It's an expansion. This stuff is so slow. Things change so slowly, but it's a step in the right direction, and I think we should support the green roofs. All right. Any edits?
I have thoughts, but I think this is a great first step. And I think getting it in front of them and I think getting them approved is the way to go.
Yeah. I also love just sending a memo from time to time to remind folks that we exist.
Hey, we're here to pitch for the plants.
Yeah, not even kidding. The people who show up get asked their opinion. So let's show up.
Yep. And I missed a webinar that happened today, but the title was Green Roof and Infrastructure Team, PV versus Green Roof, Opportunity Rather Than Battle. So there are conversations within, this was hosted by the Boston Society for Architecture. These conversations are happening and, hybridization is the future, hopefully. And once
Right.
we can get green roofs to have less plastic in their buildup as well, there are options for that. Anyways, can talk a lot more if anyone's interested, but more
So
green
if
roofs is a great first start.
So what happens after we approve this is probably that because Tori, you're remote, but either Leah or I stuff this onto our stationery. Do you have our stationery?
I have something. I have a header that we've put on PowerPoint before. Let me see if I can dig it up on.
Because I'm happy to just put this on stationery. It's signed at the bottom, the Urban Forestry Committee of Somerville, and then just send up a PDF, just like take care of it. Because if we pass it tonight, we can still get it on the city council agenda for Tuesday, which I think would be cool. So if we got a positive vote on this, so I guess I would move that we take a roll call vote and to approve this as a memo.
I will second that. And then I will initiate a roll call. So, Kala Taylor.
Approve.
Chris Dwan.
I vote yes.
Breck Miller.
I vote yes.
Dorothy Suput.
Yes.
Doris Jenkins.
Yeah.
Mile Grossman, yes. Tori Antonino.
Yes.
And Malik Drayton is our voting member tonight for the city. Did Malik walk away?
Make it unanimous, Malik.
Did Malik lose his headphones?
I'm here.
Do you
Oh.
vote yes?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
I'll put that on a PDF and I'll ship it around. Thank you, everybody. I feel like that was small but important.
Definitely. Awesome. All right, let me get back to the agenda. And I believe we will go back to UFC related job postings and RFPs, if that sounds good. I did a quick scan earlier. It seems like nothing new from when we last reviewed it, but there are, just to remind ourselves, going from the bottom to the top, there is a sustainability and resiliency planner within the Office of Sustainability and the Environment. There is the ADA field associate in infrastructure and asset management. It looks like these 2 tree surgeon positions are still open, and I was curious to hear from Breck if that means that the tree foreman position was filled, or if
Yeah,
there's any other
we
updates.
have a foreman, believe it or not. So his name is Jason. He started on Monday. He's mostly been doing logistical stuff so far this week, so we haven't gotten too far into trims, but he's starting tomorrow and it's all good. He seems to be a competent guy. So hopefully we can get the other 2 positions filled, but in the meantime, we've got some guys from the grounds department who are helping out with grounds crew stuff.
That's great to hear. I think we would extend the invite if this person ever wanted to attend a meeting, and I think that's what we can do.
I'll let him know.
Awesome, thank you. And then, yeah, I think that's the relevant job list update. All right, back to the agenda. All right, so I think we can jump into ongoing work updates, of which might be pretty brief. Adopt a Tree program. I know I don't have any updates on that, other than, yeah, I think probably at the start of the year, we'll convene those who've expressed interest and start to get that off the ground for next year. And then outreach. I don't know if someone wants to give an update on our Summer Streets Monster Mash edition.
I can.
Awesome. Yeah, go for it.
It was pretty straightforward of an outreach event. We talked to a decent amount of people. And yeah, I think there were definitely people who seemed interested in learning more. And I think a few people who added themselves to the email list. So hopefully maybe some of those people will come to some meetings or just, yeah, know more about the urban forestry community.
Thank you. Yeah, and Tori brought an amazing display of dried grasses and seed heads and flowers, and we made magic wands and made some seed balls and saw a lot of cute pets dressed up in costumes and children. So it was a great event as always, and thank you everyone who helped our tabling efforts this fall. I feel like the winter gets a little quiet, and then we should talk about possible winter farmers market tabling, because I know we did that last year and that was a good one. So we'll circle back as outreach committee now that our big push of the fall is complete. And then species selection and planting protocol. I know we haven't had a meeting recently, but a relevant thing to note, I don't know if anyone else saw USDA, I think, just released a new planting zone map for the country, and our zone has now changed. We are now 7B, which is just a mental shift for those of us who read planting zone maps a lot. But a reminder that climate change is shifting what is going to live here and what's going to live here in the future, and the things that we've started to adapt in our species recommendations reflect that. And it's a bit of data that continues to remind us of these changes. So check that out, and we should set another species selection meeting soon. And then TPO, I think we covered those updates already. Anything else TPO related? I think that probably did it, right?
I mean, I would talk about it all day.
We'll see if we have extra time, we can always go back. And then, yes.
Oh wait, continue. I'm gonna send you guys information on the open space effects plan.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
And Somerville's most wanted weeds. I don't know if Kala, do you have an update on that?
Last time I checked the folder with the photos, we still didn't have enough photos for all the plants that we have. So I can start adding the ones that we do have, but still waiting on like more photos of a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
If we don't get people to send us some, is there like a way we could look at like images like online that are like open source images that we could use on the poster?
Yeah, I think we could probably get some from iNaturalist. And then maybe, I know a lot of them are like spring things that pop up in the spring, perhaps. So yeah, maybe we should think about it as a group when we want to release this. I know when we had it 2 tabling times ago, people were really excited to see it, and it generated a lot of discussion about joining invasive removal, actions and activities. So I think it's important that we have an updated poster, and seeing that, yeah, Tori said we'll need to make sure photos are open source, definitely. And Crystal is asking what weeds are still misting and can send some more in and take a look around. So do you know off the top of your head which?
I'm not sure, but I can check right now and get back to you.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, if we have sort of if all of us can go go on the hunt before things get too quiet for the winter. But yeah, I think having a goal of having a new poster by springtime would be great. And then any updates on the GLX? I'm assuming usually Vanessa has updates for us. And I know we had a concerned resident join last meeting about that. And I don't know if there was any sort of action on that front.
I heard, I was on an email thread through Green and Open that Renee Scott took a walk with some official from MassDOT, I believe, but like an official thing. There was some connection, and pitched pollinator gardens along the GLX, and they were super enthused and said, yeah, how do we just do that? And so there's momentum there, and it might, like, there's a whole bunch of different things in greening the GLX, but all of us were stunned to hear a MassDOT person just say, yeah, let's do it. So I have no further details than that, but it's the first positive news I've heard about greening the GLX in ever, and I'm very happy to share that.
That's awesome. And it was MassDOT, not MBTA?
Could have been MBTA. I can check, but it was somebody official, and we're all like, wow, so that's a thing that happened.
Sweet. Tori, do you have a addition to that? Maybe not. Yeah, that sounds very
Yes.
promising.
Oh, sorry. Chris might be. Yes. So Renee Scott is the head of the Mass Pollinator Network, Mass Pollinator Network coordinator at NOFA. And so she connected with Tim Lasker, the T's manager of sustainability. They went for a walk on the community path. And then she mentioned someone named Erica. I don't know who Erica is. They're really excited about planting pollinator gardens, and it would be sort of a ownership type ownership management style. Okay, I need clarity on that, but yes, so they found 3 sites, and the T would pay for the plants, designed by the community and installed and paid for by the T. The maintenance would fall to the T, but they would welcome community help. And this Tim person lives in Somerville, and so yeah, they're working together to make that happen, and there's great joy around it. So that could be a thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like one site is near Lowell Street and one site is near Walnut Street.
Sweet. Well, yeah, keeps in the loop. That's great news. All right. Anything else on GLX stuff? And I think we covered our green roof support letter, which is great. Breeze through all that. Does anyone else have any other community related work updates, ideas, insights? Oh, yeah,
I can give the list of species that we don't have photos of.
Mhm.
We don't have photos of the Norway maple, the sycamore maple, goutweed / bishop's weed, bittersweet, creeping thistle, field blindweed, quack grass, creeping Charlie, dame's rocket or bouncing bet. We're looking for a different common name of Humulus japonicus. Sorry for watching the Latin, but we don't have any photos of that. We don't have photos of henbit or dead nettle, creeping jenny, creeping buttercup, lesser celandine or fig buttercup, or periwinkle, multiflora rose. yellow iris, and burdock are all the ones that we're still looking for photos for.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing that. I can imagine, I bet Tori has some of those documented already if I had a hunch. But yeah, maybe the rest of us can also think about if we have photographed these in the past. I'd also be happy to help search for reputable open source online for those. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
Calla, could someone or whoever wrote those, I didn't catch them all. Calla, would you be willing to send them to our group list or whoever's taking notes to send them to us?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I have everyone's email, but I can draft a note, and I think I can send them maybe to Vanessa, and she can send them to everyone.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Great. All right. Well, I think we made it through all of our items, and we just have to approve the meeting minutes from October. So I am moved to approve the meeting minutes from October. If anyone has a second for that.
I'll second that.
Excellent. And so we'll do a roll call. This is also assuming everyone had a chance to read and review those minutes. Did anyone not have a chance to do that? Great. All right, so I'll roll call. Calla Taylor.
Approve.
Chris Dwan.
I approve.
Breck Miller.
I was not at that meeting, so I guess I'll abstain.
Sounds good. Doris.
Approve.
Tori.
Approve.
Malik. I saw your mouth say approve, so I think that counts on video. And Leah Grossman, me, approve as well. So approved with unanimous, with one abstention. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight, and we'll end a few minutes early. And I think we'll still have a December meeting, assuming everyone is available. So it's great to see you all.
And check your email. I sent you a link. For
Oh yeah. Do we want to?
We could talk about that next month.
Okay. It is not time sensitive.
No, I don't think so.
I did open the email and meant to share it for a second. We didn't vote to end our meeting yet, so can pull this up really quick. So yeah, I think we saw this a couple weeks back that the city's updating the open space and recreation plan, which will guide priorities and goals for the next 7 years. And there is a survey that Malik sent to all of us. So
please fill out that survey. Homework.
And do you know, Will, yeah, as the Urban Forestry Committee, will we have any sort of little blurb or section or way to collaborate or contribute to this plan?
I believe so.
Sweet.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, maybe we can talk about it in more detail in the December meeting.
Yeah. Malik, I imagine there'll be more engagement than just the survey.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Somerville is okay. Perfect. We'll talk about it next meeting.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.